Previously, I have said that I've become quite a fan of ASUS's TUF brand because they're taking the ASUS ethos and bringing it into really, really good value for money products. And the TUF 301 is a prime example of that. Good afternoon and welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. Today I'm unfortunately Rudolph reviews. I'm a little bit under the weather, hence the red nose. So please do take a little bit of more patience applied to me today because yeah, my brain is addled with very strong antibiotics and such. But onwards and upwards to the TUF 301. This struck me as just a really good value proposition with the general ASUS quality and product quality that I've come to know them for over the better part of over a decade now that I've been consuming them pretty much religiously, consuming their product. Just want to make sure like there's no misunderstanding there. It's always just been a pretty good buy and a pretty reliable one that you're going to get something that isn't going to fail very easily, that's extremely well built and it's going to last a long time. But their mid-range of products was lacking somewhat. Enter TUF Gaming, which is a whole slew of products built with other various companies as well, with a full branded sort of storyline that runs through or like a trail that, as it were, that runs throughout the whole product line. The TUF 301 on paper was so good that I actually blind purchased one for a mate. We built his machine into it, and then I literally immediately sent him a message and said, please give me a review sample, because for 1,500 Rand, which is what these go for on special, they are incredibly good value for money. The default layout is such that you have a full front mesh with 360 or 280mm radiator support, and it comes with three 120 ARGB fans. Those have their own little connecting blocks, so there is one addressable header that comes out of that, and then one fan header that they're all daisy chained into. The back fan is a plain black 120mm fan, and that has its own separate connector. And it's important to note for the test that I'll show you a little bit later that I did do, that the 120mm is connected on its own header, the back one, and then the three front ones are daisy chained together and then connected into the bottom of the motherboard. The ARGB is not connected because unfortunately this motherboard doesn't have an addressable header. CPU cooling support and PSU size are nicely symmetrical at 160mm, and to carry on with that symmetry, the GPU max length is 320mm. You're probably going to look at about 270 if you are going to have a radiator at the front of the machine though. The back panel layout is also really nice. It's got a couple of loop points for you to be able to cable tie stuff onto. I purposefully haven't done that, which I'll get to in a moment, but the garrets are nice. Everything for feeding your cables is in the right spot. There's holes along the top in the right spot, down the side of the backplate as well, to be able to get those power cables through in the right points, and then similarly at the bottom for all of your front I/O connections, and then obviously your power button and your audio and everything else that you need to connect over there. Speaking of front I/O, they've done something on there that initially struck me as a little bit weird, but I actually think it's maybe a bit of a genius move. They've got standard two USB 3.0s with a power button, a reset button, and then a separate LED switch. And a lot of manufacturers are now doubling up on the reset and LED switch on the same port. So you can unplug it from your controller and then plug it into the reset port. And ultimately it is just a switch at the end of the day. But they've separated the two, and then there was a combo jack, so it's a 3-in-1, so you get your microphone and your headset all in one, which a lot of gaming headsets use today. So if you don't want to have to use the extension, or you're just going to a LAN quickly or something to that effect, and you've got a 3-in-1, prime example being like a Cougar headsets, I found that their standard one was about a meter or so, let's say 1.2 meter before it went into the connecting block. I actually probably wouldn't need that, because if I'm sitting right next to my PC and I can connect it all in the front there, then that takes over it. You've got by default a split setup on most of your motherboards where you've got your audio jack and your mic. So this gives you the option of either or. It might not be for everybody, but I actually quite like it, to be very honest with you. Next to that, you might notice this little tab over here, which is a headphone stand, and it can be put on either side of the case, which is quite a nice little touch. Full glass side panel and a PSU shroud just to complete the default setup these days. Two 120mm fan support on top and a 120mm out back. but like I said, it's got 280mm up front. So at any point, you will be able to have more in than out depending on your water cooling setup. This is by default though a very, very good air cooling based platform because you've got the 3 in with the 1 out at the back over here, and then the top mesh is completely open. If you wanted to enhance that slightly, you could throw another 120 at the back, but with that amount coming in, it's going to create static pressure already, and you can actually feel it pushing through the top over here. Nice magnetic mesh as well on the top. Like I said, the defaults on this case are really, really solid. Now I let someone that's basically built like 5 PCs in their whole life put this thing together, and I've left it exactly as they had put it together, just to show you how easy it actually is to work in this case. With a little bit of instruction and some assistance, they were able to get like a really clean looking build. It was just maybe the loop on the bottom of that cable, and I probably would actually change how the GPU is set up, albeit it actually did a good job because on these Antec HCGs, they do have like really, really stiff heat shrink that's over there on the cables, so they don't bend too well. So going down and stuff can put some undue pressure on your graphics card and actually pull it out of place. But to counter that, they include a little GPU bracket, which you'll see under the TUF 5600 XT. But now moving on to performance. So there were some complaints about the system and everything that I've put into it. I have seen this 9600 KF go over 75 degrees in cases that didn't have the best airflow. So and that was on the average as well, which is like 6 or 7 degrees higher than you'll see in the benchmarks on your screen now. The ones that I did before were about 5 to 7 degrees higher is what I can figure. I probably do need to get a thermometer to put in for the ambient temperature because it's very cold inside of my studio, to be quite honest with you, which is a delight in summer, but yeah, in winter it does not help really with the results and keeping the benchmark as accurate as humanly possible. So take it with a pinch of salt. I would say you're gonna at least have half of that difference on top. So from what you see it as maybe 2 to 3 degrees higher than that. The 5600 XT is actually also kind of too good. It's been too well made by ASUS because it just doesn't get hot no matter what I do to it. I haven't actually been able to get over like 61 degrees pretty much ever. So I think I'm going to actually wait for the summer months to come back and we hit a nice 35-degree day. I'll open up the curtains and let the sun in and try and get it as hot as humanly possible in the studio. Literally block off the ports and see if I can get the GPU to heat up past that point. But it kept its performance up really, really nicely. The stress tests and FireMark looked very, very good. A 99.7 and a 99.8 means things are running pretty damn well. In conclusion then, this layout and the default fan kit that it comes with having the full ARGB 360mm worth of fans, plus the fan at the back, plus the glass side panel, PSU shroud, full mesh on everything, it just ticks the right boxes for me. I really like the little feet that they've put on here as well, because it means that the PSU area gets its own air without having to struggle as well, and can completely isolate that circuit from the rest of the machine, ensuring that that doesn't heat up the machine. In this case, the 850 watt is very underutilized. It's a 80 plus gold running a 5600 XT and a 9600 KF that even with overclock, I think the max on this system is probably about 280 watts. So yeah, it's not really being pulled too hard, and I hope to get a much hotter, or actually a less efficient test bench to be able to something that creates more heat. I do agree with that sentiment, but just looking at this and my experiences with cases, the front mesh is a really nicely done portion. Some of the mesh does seem a little bit small, to be honest, but it doesn't actually seem to impact airflow, and the rest of the grid on it is wide enough that it's definitely not going to impact your airflow. Literally the only thing on this case that I saw that I might want to change is actually the plastic on the front of this panel. For some reason the product finish it's matte, but it almost comes off like porous, and it tends to pick up and cling to dust quite easily. Even with that being said, the traditional ASUS quality and value is massively present in this. I'm very happy to suggest this. If you guys are looking for a really solid, like you could put a GPU length limiting, you could put a pretty good system in here. You could water cool it quite comfortably. There's plenty of space in between the front and where the shroud starts, so that you can put a 360mm rad, even if it is a fatter boy than normal, if it's not just a 30mm radiator and it's more like I've seen some Bits Power ones and stuff that are like 45, 50 mils. I would hazard a guess it could probably fit in there. Anywho, that is the ASUS TUF 301 in a nutshell. If you guys have enjoyed this review, please do hit us up with a like and subscribe, and I will see you on the flip side.